Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from friends coming together to talk about Star Wars and other nerd-related media. Happy 2026 to everybody. We've been off for the holidays. We are back. We're excited for a new year. We're rested, even though work, has gotten in the way of that rest. But, we got to pay those bills. But we hope that everyone has had a very pleasant and beautiful holidays with friends, with family. Hopefully everyone was able to take some time off to celebrate all the holidays that you celebrate the new year, be very excited for what's coming. I know that we're very excited for 2026, and how better to celebrate 2026 here on Triad of the Force as we begin this new year than with our friend Catrina Dennis from the Geeky Waffle. Welcome, Catrina. Not your first rodeo with us, so very happy to have you here to start off the year. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. I'm really happy to be here. Every once in a while, I feel like I'm the fifth Beatle of the triad.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
very
kind
much
of
so.
pop in and out every once in a while. So it feels so good to be back, and I appreciate you calling me in to kick off the new year because it's an exciting year.
It's an exciting year. I mean, in more ways than one, and we'll talk about that in a few. But I'm glad you
Mhm.
said that Fifth Beatle reference because it's one of the things that I think we here at Triad have always been proud of. It's just not just being like a welcoming space to bring in a bunch of different content creators and friends to talk about Star Wars, but we'll always try to keep the pool fresh and have like new faces come in
Mhm.
for new diverse points of view. But it's also good to have some to have some friends that you can count on to talk, come back and repeat, and have some friendly faces that are always here. And we're always very happy and honored that you were one of the first people that we had on the podcast, like almost 4 years. I mean, 4 or 5 years ago. I don't even know how long we've been
Yeah.
doing this, and we're very
Mhm.
happy to have you here
Yeah.
still. So thank you for always saying yes when I call you last minute because I'm terrible at scheduling. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, always happy to be here.
How have things been? Like how did 2025 treat you, and how is this new year treating you so far? I know that 2025 was a difficult year, in the real
Mhm.
world anyway, because of everything has been going on in the world, and
Yeah.
2026 seems to be continuing that trend. But how have you been? How has everything been?
I mean, with excusing the rest of the world, everything's been really, really great. I moved to a really cool new house with my partner, and now
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. Now fiance. He
Double congratulations.
yeah, he actually is super relevant to this podcast. He uh coordinated a day-long immersive Star Wars scavenger hunt to propose to
Oh,
me at
that's
Disneyland.
dedication.
Right. He had one of our friends on the phone as Fulcrum, and like I woke up in the morning, I got this like dossier that showed up magically in our hotel room,
Uh-huh.
and had to like decode it, and then I unlocked like an opening crawl that was kind of a continuation of this fanfic that he wrote for
Mm-hmm,
me when he
mm-hmm.
was courting me. And then we went to Disneyland, and he had made these like kyber crystal
Hmm.
shards, like seven
Oh
of
my
them that
God.
I had to find throughout Disneyland, and the whole thing ended at Batu. We were under the Batuan wishing tree, and the folks from Savi's workshop came out with my friend Kyle, my best friend, who also
Mm-hmm.
coincidentally works at Disneyland, and was planting the shards ahead of us every step of the way. And they put the crystal back together, and then that crystal became my engagement
That's
ring.
that's
So
pretty that's pretty incredible. That's amazing. Congratulations to you. I'm extremely impressed by that. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of
oh
work.
yeah.
Is your partner like was also a big Star Wars fan? I know that they're a
Oh
Star
yeah.
Trek fan as
Oh
well,
yeah.
as are you. So is Star Wars
Yeah.
also a thing that he had to, adapt to be able to create this, or this was just easy for
Oh, it was
him to
super
do?
easy for him. Like back when he first tried to get my attention, I don't know, I feel like Star Wars fans will remember this, but there was a cover of, I think, the third Thrawn book that came
Mhm.
out, and it featured Thrawn on his knees in handcuffs. And I made a joke about it,
Mm-hmm.
about how like Star Wars fans will, I think it was like Star Wars fans will say, if you look like this, DM me, and it's some blue guy. And then I like replied to that tweet at the time when we were on Twitter, and said like, but if you look like this, DM me. And then like the next day, he hopped into my DMs. He had photoshopped himself blue to look like a chiss, and and it's history from there. So yeah, he's big into Star Wars, and I'm also big into Star Trek. But you know, like he carries more of the weight of Star Trek, and I carry
Mm-hmm.
more of the weight of Star Wars in our relationship.
I
So
mean, when you're the CEO of Ventress,
I
you
do.
kind of have to. You kind of have to.
Yeah,
It's a burden, so to speak,
a blessing and a curse,
a
but
blessing
mostly,
and a curse.
at least as of 2025, really a blessing. Like we got like Tales of the Underworld,
Mm-hmm.
the new Lego, the Rebuild the
Rebuild
Galaxy.
the galaxy.
Ventress
Yeah.
was featured in that. She was featured in some card sets. She got like a new, oh, the Halloween like Dathomir witch
Mm-hmm.
figurine where they painted her green and stuff. So it was a pretty good year to be a Ventress fan last year. So
And I mean, and it seems like it's a not an omen, but maybe a sign of things to come. And obviously, we
mhm.
want to talk about all the things that are coming, right? In
Yes.
2026 for Star Wars. Well, it's 2026 and beyond, but specifically 2026. But you know, it's we unfortunately with the holidays and scheduling and family and work and all those things, Trial of the Force was not able to do our annual holiday special where we, you know, got together and just looked at the year and did our year in review, which apparently even ChatGPT does a year in review, which I don't understand why, but everyone and their mother's doing those. So it's better than late than never. So I figure today, you
Yeah.
know, between you and I, we kind of look at 2025 as we get ready to look ahead into 2026 and kind of see how Star Wars treated us. And I think 2025 was a pretty good year for Star Wars, especially considering how some on the fandom menace and that side of the internet always try to insist that Star Wars is dying. Kind of seems like it was good and it's roaring to come back bigger and better than ever. Maybe that might be
Yeah.
controversial, but how was it? How was your Star Wars 2025? Because I know your real life 2025 might be more difficult with all the political challenges that the year brought us. But how did
Yeah.
Star Wars treat you?
I mean, like I said, as a Ventress fan, treated me really well. But as a Star Wars fan in general, I had a really good time throughout 2026. I was really pleased with all of the releases we got. And while I was sad to, I guess, begin to say goodbye to the High Republic,
Hmm.
we still got incredible new stories. We got some slamming new comics.
Hmm.
I was just astounded by the level of quality we got in our Star Wars stories last year, whether it's on the paper, on screen, you know, again, Tales of the Underworld, Rebuild the Galaxy. We got Visions season
Hmm.
3 last year, which was incredible. We ate real good.
Hmm.
But I
It's
mean,
easy to take it for granted when we eat this
yeah,
much, you know? I feel
yeah.
like that's the problem that a lot of people have is that they don't know what the dark times were.
Exactly. For a very long time, we just had fanfic, guys,
Hmm. Hmm.
and we were thankful for that. Okay, we had fanfic and the expanded universe, and then at some point, the expanded universe started slowing down, and all we had was fanfic while the transition was happening, and it feels good to say there was like so much to do.
Hmm.
Like last year, on a personal level, I back in I think April, yeah, April, I was able to take my dad to Galaxy's Edge,
Amazing,
and
beautiful. Hmm.
yeah, and my dad, you know,
They had never been. Your dad hasn't.
he's never ever, and it's funny because like he lives over in Florida, but like, you know, the Florida parks are really big, and like he's a little
Hmm.
older, and it's hard
It's very
for him to
crowded. Yeah, yeah.
navigate. Yeah, so we were able to fly him out. So the first night he was here, we did Universal Fan Fest nights, which was
Hmm.
like a whole thing. They're doing it every year now. There was a Star Trek activation with like the actual bridge of the Enterprise D, like the set pieces were there. So we took him to do Star Trek one night, and the very next day, we took him to Galaxy's Edge, and he built a
Wow,
lightsaber, and it was
amazing.
so emotional. Like
What
it,
kyber crystal did he choose?
He chose a purple kyber crystal, but he
Perfect,
bought a
perfect.
white one after to replace it because he really wanted a white one. And it was kind of funny because so my dad, when he grew up in Chile, and he came over here, I think like in the 70s when most
Hmm.
Chileans came over here. And so one of the first movies he saw in the US was Star Wars with his
Hmm.
dad, with my abuelo. And after we like went through the lightsaber experience and we were like walking out and we had like his lightsaber, he like turned to me because he had come in with a very specific plan of the type of lightsaber he was going to build.
Hmm.
And then he picked a completely different set. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know why he changed his mind. But like when we were walking out, he like turned to me and he's like, I feel like your abuelo was with me when I
Hmm.
was
It's the will
building
of the
this
Force.
lightsaber,
Hmm.
and I was just, I like, I felt like I was gonna cry. I was like, is that why you picked the different one? And he's like, yeah, it just came over me that like this is the one that like I would have built with him.
That's
And
beautiful.
I had tears in my eyes and just like, I've been to Galaxy's Edge a million times. I've been very lucky. Like I have friends who work at the parks. I used to live very close to the parks. So I'm very used to just like schlubbing around Galaxy's Edge and not like, I guess not appreciating it as much as I did
Hmm.
when it first opened. So like getting to go with him again was like phenomenal. And I gained this new appreciation for it. I paid way too much money to make sure we got lightning lane, so he got to go on Rise of
Yeah, yeah.
Resistance. He got to fly the Falcon and take us into hyperspace. We got to eat and like go to Oga's and like the whole shebang. He got the whole experience. And it was so awesome. And then the very next day he flew home. But it was Star Wars nights at that time. So we
Hmm.
stayed
Hmm.
an extra day in Anaheim and we went to Star Wars nights with my friends, and it was awesome.
Star Wars Nights is incredible. I remember the only one that I've done was back in Celebration Anaheim,
Mm.
but I did not enjoy it as much as I would have if because when you're at a convention, you're walking what like 10 to 20,000 steps a day,
Mhm.
like your feet are ground beef. So like by the
Mhm.
time that I left the convention to go to Disneyland and just be at Galaxy's Edge, I could not stay standing basically. So I just had
Yes.
to leave. But thankfully, did Rise of the Resistance as well. Smuggler's Run, Oga's Cantina. Even though we didn't get a seat, I had to stand in one of
Oh
those
yeah.
booths. So I was just like, oh, I was like, come on, man! It's like 5 minutes to sit down. So
Like that's
hopefully,
my
hopefully in
that's
the
my
future,
cri-
we
Yeah,
can.
that's my criticism of Star Wars nights is like I went, and this year I did Oogie Boogie Bash like
Hmm.
back in October or September with Candace from the Geeky Waffle, and we noticed that like the huge difference between Oogie Boogie and Star Wars nights is like the way California Adventure is laid out. Oogie Boogie is like a thing you go through, like
Hmm.
you choose your steps and you like walk through it. It's very procedural, I think, and
Hmm.
it's easier to navigate. Whereas like Star Wars nights is like, oh, Luke and Leia over here, and then on the other side of the park, that's where Anakin and Padme are, and then over this way, that's where this activation is, and like you kind of have to like pinball in and out of like the little circle part
Hmm.
in the middle of the park and then go back and forth to try and get everything. And like so and I had, like I said, I had just gone to do FanFest nights and a day
Hmm.
at Disney with my dad the day before, so I was very much in the same state you were when you came from the con to Star Wars
Yeah.
nights. And like that's like the only thing I wish they would fix about it is like I would love to just have a path to go through for Star Wars nights, or like a couple options for
Hmm.
paths that didn't have us going back to the pinwheel in the middle like all night long. So yeah,
Agreed, but still a beautiful experience.
amazing.
Still able,
Yeah.
I mean, still incredible to see everyone bring their lightsabers and just light them in front of the Millennium Falcon. It's something that's still the power and the magic of Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars of how it brings people together and sharing joy. And I think that's one of the things that I always am reminded of when I think of Galaxy's Edge and the cons that we go to is just focus on good people being kind to each other and just celebrating their joy for this franchise that has given us so many books, so many films, so many shows that that are special.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not everything connects with everybody as it shouldn't. Some stories resonate more with other people, but to have something that to share with complete strangers and just find happiness in that is something really special. And I think that moments like these, with your dad at Galaxy's Edge and with strangers at a con is one of those things that I think is the power of this galaxy far, far away, where we kind of have to always look back and see the special moments that it gives us, because you were talking about Padme, finding Padme and Anakin at Star Wars nights, and it just reminded me, like, yeah, 2025 was the year that we celebrated. What was it? 20 years of the Revenge of the Sith, which is
Yeah, 20
insane.
years.
I was like, no, it can't be 20 years. It must be 10. But then I'm
Wild.
like, no, it's 10 years of The Force Awakens. So
Hmm.
20 of Revenge of the Sith. And, we celebrated with a beautiful poster from Matt Ferguson, and then a
Yes. Oh my
theatrical
gosh.
re-release of the film in 4DX, which is incredible. But how was that like for you to all of a sudden be celebrating 20 years of Revenge of the Sith? And like what was that like for you? How did you celebrate? Did you go see it
Yeah.
in the movie theater, or like what was your how did we celebrate it?
So I actually ended up, again, a very fortunate turn of events. We got the invite through the Geeky Waffle
Hmm.
to go to Lucasfilm, to the Letterman campus up
Hmm.
in the what is it? In San Francisco. It's like
Hmm.
and a beautiful campus at that. Like, it's right across from the Palace of Fine Arts, which is the structure that inspired
Hmm.
Naboo, which I thought was like perfectly on theme. So Candace came into town the day before we did the Walt Disney Family Museum, and like for no reason or reasons I can't understand, Sam Witwer was there
Hmm.
just hanging out.
Well,
So I got
is a Star Wars fan first and foremost.
of course, yeah, he was there touring the museum, so it was cool to see him. And then the very next day, we went and saw Revenge of the Sith
Hmm.
at Lucasfilm, and like I've been very fortunate to see two movies in that theater now.
Hmm.
I saw the Rise of Skywalker
Hmm.
there. I was invited by some friends who work at Lucasfilm, and then getting invited to this was really special because there were staffers there, and Lucasfilm, like the people from Lucasfilm, but it was very much a fan screening. There were a lot of like 501st Rebel Legion. There were that squad of Night Sister cosplayers that
Hmm. Hmm.
shows up and looks incredible every time there's a Star Wars event. They were there, and we all got to just watch this movie again as fans, and like everyone cheered at the right times, everyone laughed at the right times, and it just like it's just a reminder that if you ever feel drained from all the negativity online, find a way to be around Star Wars
Hmm.
fans in real life,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it really makes you realize that like that is such a small loud portion of this fandom, and the majority of people just really love what Star Wars means to them. And there are so many different meanings of like how people relate to Star Wars. And it was great. Like, I got to, we walked out and people were having lightsaber fights around the Yoda fountain,
Oh my
and
God, that's so surreal. Yeah.
it was, oh my God, it was just incredible. And there were a bunch of people there that we loved very much. Isabella Amidala, and all the a lot of really incredible people who have just made this fandom better by simply
Hmm.
existing
Hmm.
and creating within it. And then we all went to this diner who was just
Mel's Diner.
Mel's Diner, yeah,
Hmm.
where George used to hang out, and we all there were
American
just
Graffiti. Yep.
yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, were they? Yeah, and I recognized that parking lot. It was really really cool. It was also incredibly windy and cold, but you know what? Worth it, because it was again just magical to be sitting in that diner with a
Yeah.
bunch of Star
It's
Wars
iconic.
fans.
Yep.
It was just magic. I loved it so much. And we got like cool posters and artwork and stuff like that to celebrate the anniversary. So yeah, I feel very lucky and very happy that I got to share that with everyone there.
Yeah, it's incredible because it's always important to look back because sometimes, you think like, 2025 was such a bad year, work sucked, and,
Mm.
the government and the world is on fire. But then
Mm-hmm.
kind of you look back at the bright spots and you don't realize how bright they are because you're right, we were very fortunate, to celebrate Revenge of the Sith. Obviously, we also celebrated The Force Awakens, which I'm kind of surprised that they didn't re-release, but, that's a topic for another day.
Mm-hmm.
But also, very fortunate to have Andor and have been, extremely fortunate to also go to Lucasfilm and be in
Yes.
San Francisco with a bunch of our friends there and kind of do similar things. Because we also went to Mel's Diner and we went to, oh my God, I totally forgot the name of the building, but Francis Ford Coppola's restaurant there where we had.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I forgot the name of American Zoetrope. So he had
Mm-hmm.
like the Italian restaurant down there and see where he sits when he goes there. So it's such a magical place to be like in surrounded by where all these Star Wars creatives are also surrounded by to
Mm-hmm.
create all these worlds. And then Japan, Star Wars celebrates in Japan, where we are
Yeah.
able to connect with all these fans and not just connect and celebrate, but also see all the upcoming things for Star Wars, which we'll get to in a minute because I think we still need to celebrate a little bit more the things that occurred because we had, like you mentioned, Tales of the Underworld and Visions, but we also finished early in January. We finished Skeleton Crew. We
Yes.
had Andor season 2, obviously, which was snubbed by the Golden Globes, but we won't talk about that today.
Mm.
A bunch of great books. Mask of Fear, Reign of the Empire, which was incredible by Alexander Freed. Comic
Mm-hmm.
books, I think, at least for me, I don't know which was your highlight for comic books, but Legacy of Vader, I think,
Yes. Yeah, that
incredible.
was definitely mine.
Charles Soule crushing it as usual. But what? Let's talk about the publishing side, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
What were your publishing highlights? Obviously, we just talked about Legacy of Vader a little bit, but if you want to expand on that, or just talk about some other Star Wars book from High Republic or anything else that really hit home for you in 2025, like let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I will talk about Legacy of Vader because if you know anything about me, you know that I have like very little sympathy or had very little sympathy for Kylo Ren, Ben Solo. Like I just he never resonated with me, and
Fair.
the way that Legacy of Vader was written, I feel like I was actually able to spend time with the character. Um and I'm no apologist. Like I've loved villains my whole life. I don't apologize for who they are, because I don't need to.
Hmm.
But I really it gives you a chance to really understand like how he became what he became,
Hmm.
why he became what he became, and like there's still, I think, I wouldn't say that I am, like I said, I'm not an apologist. I don't really feel sympathetic, but it did make the character 100 times cooler to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Like I really, I think that being able to spend that time and understand him on that deep level and like learn more about like the legacy of Ren and all of that,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
I think that was really great. And of course Charles Soule is amazing. So
Yeah.
I yeah.
I totally agree because as much as I'm not, a fan of this movie right here,
Mhm.
I've never apologized for not being a fan of the Rise of Skywalker because I think it was a disservice to
Yeah.
Rey's story and Kylo's story, especially by ending his story when we should have seen a lot more of it. It
Hmm.
it was very nice to see as a contrary to what a lot of the toxic internet fanboys want to say that the sequel trilogy is going to be retcon and all these things, but then still seeing stories like this, it's like no, actually we're strengthening the sequel trilogy in many
Hmm.
ways. And even though we're not getting the hunt for Ben Solo, we got Legacy of Vader, where we're kind of seeing a lot of those missing pieces from the films that also not a disservice to the films, so like having such short time gaps in between each film, because then I think it limits a lot the stories that you can tell in between the movies. But that's a gripe for another day. And I think that Legacy of Vader does such a really good job at
Hmm.
bridging those gaps and telling us a lot about Kylo's backstory that we haven't been able to be privy to. But also, I mean, the artwork in that comic book is phenomenal.
Oh God,
I mean,
yes.
Star Wars comics usually great, but this one specifically, like the art really spoke to me, and it's absolutely beautiful and haunting, and it's a completely different level, I think, to some of the art that we've seen in some other comic books. I mean, in my opinion, obviously, but I just want this series to continue. I know we're getting some the like the final issues for the first run now in 2026, but I
Mhm.
hope that it's an ongoing series because we need more Kylo Ren if we're not
Yeah.
gonna get the hunt for Ben Solo. So in absence of Ben, give us Kylo.
Yes, exactly. I agree with that 100%. The other big thing that I think added to the sequel trilogy for me specifically that came out last year, I think it was the tail end of last year, was The Last Order. Was that last
Mm-hmm.
year? I hope it was because
It's
yeah,
the
okay.
Finn and Jaina
The Finn and
book.
Jana book, yeah. By let me look up the author's name, Kwame Mbalia.
Hmm.
I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I have never read that name out loud. But um, I just usually okay. I get very bored by imperial like stories. I'm not if there's just not a lot to hold my attention in them when it's all about talking to each other and like
Hmm.
being passive aggressive and bitter, which is a lot of what imperial stories are. But this book had so much character. There were so many. The stakes were high enough that
Hmm.
I kept wanting to go back to it. I kept wanting to read more of it. And even though like my interest in the first order is like inexplicably like low,
Fair.
being leading that culture with Finn and John and
Hmm.
Jana, and then leaping between the book basically like is leaps between their time in the first order
Hmm.
and a post resistance post rise of skywalker story,
Hmm.
which was extremely cool and interesting because it kind of shows you what they're left with. Leia has passed, Han is gone, Luke is gone. It's just Finn and Poe and the Resistance and
Hmm.
Janna and all of them, and they have to pick up the pieces and figure out a way to lead the galaxy and like get rid of the First Order remnants so that this never happens again.
Yeah.
And we don't have another like fascism again, but stupider in another 20 years. Um,
Mm,
which I think is very relevant to these days. So I think everyone
extremely.
should, yeah, everyone should read it maybe so that we come up with some good ideas. Because yeah, I mean, like that's a huge focus of the book in the present timeline of the book, and
Yeah.
then in the past timeline, it kind of shows you like how that brainwashing happened in the First Order. It wasn't just the fact that they abducted these kids, it was the fact that they were put through this regimen
Hmm.
of belief, essentially, where it was like, no, it was good that I was kidnapped because what we're doing is important and
Hmm.
good.
Hmm.
And it just gets you very much into that mindset of understanding why people do these things and why it's so easy to brainwash people like that. So yeah, totally recommend it. If you slept on that book, please go read The Last Order. Because it was just another. There were a lot of things that complemented the sequel trilogy last year,
Yeah.
actually. So yeah, 100%.
And we're gonna keep having some more, but
Hmm.
somehow I forgot to mention Mask of Fear. No, not
Yes.
Mask of Fear. Sorry, Master of Evil from Adam Christopher,
Hmm.
a non-Darth Vader Darth Vader book, which was also, if you go into it knowing that it's not a Darth Vader, where Darth Vader's a adjacent character to it, you will enjoy it far more than I personally did, thinking that it was Darth Vader was going to be the main character. So be warned, but it is excellent. Adam Christopher, amazing, in terms of writing gothic horror and imbuing it into Star Wars. There's such a lot of interesting, cool things. So like how he talks about the Force and the darkness, right, of how
Hmm.
Darth Vader is perceived by outsiders, because we always see him, as this kind of cool, badass villain that's like our first person perspective watching him, but in third person when you're just a normal guy that doesn't know anything about the Force, it takes a
Yeah.
completely different context for how you experience how Darth Vader moves around you. And I think that Master of Evil does a really, really good job at that. But going back to Mask of Fear, also by Alexander Freed. If you're a massive Andor fan, like I am, that book
Mm-hmm.
is just perfect to complement that viewing. Which I don't want to spend too much time talking about Andor because it's kind of the obvious show to talk about. Since in my opinion, like the best show of the best Star Wars show of 2025, and extremely relevant. But uh, what was your experience with Andor?
Oh my
Since we
gosh.
didn't get a
Yeah.
chance to talk about it too much.
I mean, it was the fact that it was so relevant was actually kind of therapeutic. And I know that, at the end of the day, Tony Gilroy wasn't writing this to
Hmm.
quote unquote predict the future. It was to reflect the past.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's always been what Star Wars has been. Star Wars was an allegory for the Vietnam War,
Hmm.
when it was originally created. And so I think Andor, on its own, it serves as a love letter to what George was really trying to say in those movies, and that he, like, he gussied it up with like space wizards, look, look,
Hmm.
look, look,
Hmm.
jingle,
Hmm.
jingle, space wizards, like fascism, space wizards. But yeah, I every performance was incredible, and I am, specifically, I am a like Jimmy Smits, Bail Organa,
Hmm. Hmm.
lover of my whole life. But gosh, who was the actor? What was his name that
Benjamin
replaced
Bratt.
Benjamin Bratt? Came in and took that character, and it felt like such a natural
Yeah.
transition. It was still so Bale, and his interpretation of Bale, especially at that time. I can now see him in books that I read, like Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which was
Hmm.
essentially functioning right around that time. and
Hmm.
and and I so appreciate that they brought Genevieve O'Reilly back,
Hmm.
especially for this season. Like, it was great to see her in season one, but this was the season that was like, this was Mon's
Yeah, that was her
season.
season. Yep. Yep.
it was
Absolutely.
it was Mon Mothma's season, and
And
my
Genevieve
gosh,
ate it up.
ate it up. And it's just such a huge disservice that, like, she and Diego, like, got so many snubs at the awards. Like,
Hmm.
I know we, overall we ate real well with TV in 2025.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there were so many good shows, but like the fact that Andor did not get the flowers it should have gotten, because it was so relevant, because it was so moving, because it was like such an impact. It had such an impact on so many people for so many different reasons. It's always going to make me a little sad that, like,
Hmm.
we don't see them accepting awards that I really do think they deserve. And then of course Diego Luna, my boy,
Hmm.
the top, from the top to the bottom, like his performance throughout the series, showing, especially with the time skips that were in this season,
Hmm.
showing that growth in such an organic and natural way. It took huge acting chops to
Yeah.
do what he did, and like, I loved it. I think my my favorite little nerdy thing about Andor is that it seamlessly flows into an episode of Rebels, and
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
love
Hmm.
Rebels
Hmm.
so much.
Hmm.
So, like, when I saw him escorting Mon out of there, and them going like, "Oh yeah, she's gonna go on a mission with some Rebel cell," I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I know that Rebel cell. She's gonna go hang out with another space Latino. It's
Exactly.
gonna be great."
Exactly.
So
And that
yeah,
and that's the also the magic and quirkiness of Star Wars. So you can have a
yeah,
show with the seriousness and the gravitas of Andor, and all of a sudden it's just like, okay, now we're gonna go into this kids show
hmm
and continue this story over there where we're talking about the same themes, but it's a little, it's the focus is a little different.
yeah,
Yeah, the vibes are different in Rebels
yeah.
than they are in Andor. But Andor, a masterclass in how to end the series, even though I know some of the beats for the ending of it were controversial, and we discussed that during our coverage of the show.
hmm
But on the whole, I think it did a good job at wrapping up that series and kind of handing it off into Rogue One. And despite Andor ending, it also felt like a lot of Star Wars was also ending because
Yes.
High Republic wrapped up, Andor wrapped up. Mando season 3 wrapped up the year before, so it seems like there have been a lot of threads that are being tied up in
Mhm.
2025. And I was watching our friends Alex and Molly's channel, Star Wars Explained, and Alex was talking there of the 2025 as kind of the ending of quote unquote phase 2 of Star Wars, which
Yeah.
I had never thought about it that way, but it was very interesting how he framed it. So I'm just going to steal it here to kind of end our conversation of 2025 as we go into 2026. But see how 2025 was kind of like the phase of streaming
Mhm.
and the High Republic, basically. Like we have all these shows from The Acolyte to Mandalorian, Andor, so on and so forth, that have kind of either been unceremoniously canceled because of toxic fanboys on the internet, or just
Mhm.
wrapped up organically, like Andor, to kind of just end this phase of streaming. High Republic's also ending. Like all the Thrawn books have also wrapped up. So like this big wave of a lot of storytelling is coming to a close, and it seems that as we go into 2026, things are in a lull, so to speak. There's a lot of stuff coming, but kind of feels like we're kind of in a like reinvigorating things into a new direction. So as a whole, how did you feel that 2025 wrapped up, and now we're stealing Alex's phase phrasing of phase 2? How did you feel that phase 2 went as a whole for Star Wars?
I mean, I think it added so much emotion and depth to Star Wars that, I mean, from the beginning, like I said, Star Wars has always had something to say. Um, but I think that what the second phase really served as, where it just feels like a bunch of creative people got together and wrote essays about
Mhm,
what Star Wars meant to them,
mhm.
if I can phrase it that way.
I
Like
like that.
you
Yeah.
you kind of saw like what the impact that Star Wars had on like Dave and John
Hmm.
versus Tony Gilroy versus like all these other creators who came together, these writers, directors, filmmakers who came together to make all of these amazing stories and it really felt like I feel like 2025 was such a cohesive year of Star Wars, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense. Like all of these stories complemented and went back to the original trilogy, to that first movie, to A New Hope,
Hmm.
and I was so pleased overall with pretty much every single thing we got. Of course, I was happiest with Tales of the Underworld,
Hmm.
just because
Bringing back that girl, bringing back
bringing back
Ventress.
my girl, bringing it back to Ventress. I cannot tell you how happy I was with every beat of Tales of the Underworld because I feel like other people who have like higher minds and more critical thinking than I do would have maybe been upset that like if they were in my shoes and they could have predicted every little thing that happened in Tales of the Underworld, but to me it showed a commitment to who the character was, like of Ventress and what her journey was. And
Hmm.
the thing, my biggest critique, and a lot of people's critiques, maybe not their biggest, of Star Wars is that redemption is never given time to become
Hmm.
atonement. And it's never, the characters who are redeemed are never given time
Hmm.
to actually enact and make the galaxy a better place after they made those messes,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I feel like Tales of the Underworld and the Bad Batch, back when she appeared in that show, it really shows you a character who sees what their part was in how the galaxy fell and is now involved in making it actively better
Hmm.
through small acts of like heroism and kind of breaking down her own walls to welcome in like these kids who keep showing up and like
Hmm. Hmm.
getting
Hmm.
into her heart and stuff and I just loved it so much, and I was also just pleased that like my theory of the fact that she was buried in a magic lake on a magic planet
Yeah.
and thus she came back to life was just like it's the most obvious thing in the world, but like 10 years of men on the internet telling me I was wrong and she would never come back, and I just I feel very very satisfied. And then of course the Cad Bane story was incredible
Mhm,
too.
mhm.
But yeah, Ventress really highlighted it for me. And then speaking of creative folks who get to tell stories in Star Wars, and I don't know if you want to jump to this right now, but Vision season 3
Mhm.
did come out. And I was very pleased with the crop of stories that we got, and how different they were, and how different the interpretations of the Star Wars universe were. Because going into it, I was kind of disappointed that, like, we in season 2 we got such an international interpretation of Star
Mhm,
Wars.
mhm, mhm.
There was a little more diversity
Yeah.
in where these stories were coming from. And like, maybe I'm biased because there was a Chilean story in season 2 that did mean a lot to me, that talked a lot about the indigenous
Mhm.
populations of Chile, and like brought that comparison to Star Wars, which
It's
really was
in the
awesome.
stars or into the
Yes, in
stars.
the
Yeah,
stars. Yeah.
it's the best one in my
It
opinion.
really
Yeah.
it really is, like, in the stars. And then that one with like the sky dancer, the spy dancer, the
Mhm, mhm.
French one. Those
Oh
two
yeah, that one's
were
great. I mean,
total
yeah,
bangers.
I agree with you. Visions Volume Two, the best one.
It was the best one. It really was. But season 3 was incredibly satisfying. I'm very happy with the choices that were made. It did make me care more about the Ninth Jedi than I did in season 1. So now
Interesting.
I'm actually excited for this anime that they're going to be doing. But I hope that if we do get a season 4, that they again expand to
Yeah,
broader
yeah,
horizons, and that we
agreed.
get to see, like Middle Eastern Star Wars
Hmm.
stories, and like further European Star Wars stories, further South American Star Wars stories. I would really love, after having Andor last year, I would love for a Mexican animation studio
Hmm.
to come and do a Star
Yeah,
Wars story. So, like, that's my hope for season 4, and it's something I am hopeful for, because I feel like they were testing the waters going back into anime.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel that, especially in the world that we're. I mean, it's always good to have
Mm.
more points of view and more voices in our in our storytelling to expand what we're aware of and cognizant of and appreciative of, but especially in the supercharged world we need it more than ever because we desperately need to be empathetic and sympathetic to the points of view and experiences of other people when it seems like the world is shifting to a very nihilistic and individualistic and selfish uh, inner inner mentality that rejects everything that's outside of oneself, and not just in a in a racial or cultural way, but just in a societal kind of way. Anything that's not your in group must be bad, and we must reject it. And I think that we need stories like this to hope somehow, through media, through stories, through Star Wars, through whatever it is, break
Mm.
down those walls so that we can kind of build a more accepting and joyful and open world. And I think that
Yes.
Visions is definitely a vehicle for that, especially Volume 2. Not that Volume 1 and Volume 3 don't do it, but there's
Yeah, but
something
volume 2 is the
especially
best one.
special, something extremely special about
Yes.
Volume 2 that I hope that we kind of go back to. But you said something that was extremely interesting to me, and I kind of want to use it as a springboard to go into 2026, because I think I definitely do agree with you that 2025 was were or phase two, because all these stories extended before 2025, were the essays of what Star Wars meant to all these creators, especially when you look at the Acolyte and obviously Andor
Hmm.
and Visions. Like, they're deeply personal and varied, and I think that as
Yeah.
you look at all the stories that were told for this alleged phase two, there was a lot of diversity and a lot of different kinds of stories.
Hmm.
Like I said, from the Acolyte to Andor to Visions to the High Republic, there was
Yes.
a lot of different creative led initiatives that told very different stories, and it somehow feels, and I want to know your opinion on this as I pivot into 2026, that
Mm.
somehow 2026 is pivoting in a opposite direction of sorts. It feels, not
Mm.
that we're not excited for anything that's
Yeah.
coming out in 2026, because there's a lot of projects to be really excited for, but somehow they all feel like we're gonna start playing it safe and start not letting creators be as as emotional in how they're
Mhm.
stamping their Star Wars with. Um,
Yeah.
and the elephant in the room, which is the news that maybe Kathy is stepping down, and maybe Dave Filoni and Lin-Manuel Brennan are going to become co-presidents of Lucasfilm, kind of have to do with this because they're in a kind of
Mm.
transition period. And as that happens, that maybe the projects need to be a little more tame until they take the reins, and then it gets wild again. But this is obviously wild speculation here
Yeah.
on my part, at least, based on some of these alleged news. But how does 2026 feel in that regard after framing it, so as you so beautifully did in terms of Phase Two, as like deeply personal essays of what Star Wars meant to these creators?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the word that popped up into my head immediately was like homogenized.
Hmm. Hmm.
It feels very like sanitary and, like you said, very safe. Like the things that we are looking forward to this year are very safe plays for
Hmm.
Star Wars. Like everybody likes these guys, everybody
Hmm.
liked Mando, everybody likes this and that. And I mean, like if this is a transitional period and eventually one day, Kathy Kennedy is going to leave Lucasfilm and retire. She has been working for so long. She
Hmm.
has produced,
She
by the way,
deserves it.
yeah, yeah, she deserves to
She's earned
retire.
it.
She and this is not me saying like, I want her to. She's an incredible producer. She does not get enough credit for
No.
bringing every time. This is something I've noticed, and I won't go too deep on it because I don't want to get too negative. But like every time something is good, it's a man's
Hmm. It's Filoni.
responsibility.
It's
But every
Filoni and
time
Tony
something is bad,
Gilroy
yeah,
rebelling against her. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like,
Even though
what do
she has
you
to
mean?
approve everything.
Yeah, she's the one who signed off on this. She's the one who signed off on all your favorite 80s movies. She's the one who helped produce a lot of those things, who made sure all of the shot lists were done, who made sure that
Hmm.
like she called the right people to get the right set pieces. Like none of those like things from your favorite visionaries would exist if Kathleen Kennedy weren't on the phone, if she weren't
Hmm. Hmm.
on fax machines, if she weren't eventually
Yeah.
on computers. This is all her. And if those rumors are true, whatever, like I see it needing to be a co-presidency because Dave Filoni is first and foremost a creative. You
Hmm.
cannot sit there and tell Dave Filoni to do spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Like he to make phone calls, to like email people. Like that is not what he does. He needs a co-president
Hmm.
because that's not something that he seems like the kind of guy who would do. My closest observation of Dave Filoni was at the Star Wars, the Lucasfilm company picnic, which I was
Hmm.
very lucky to get invited to a couple years ago. And this man's biggest job there was to oversee the egg toss competition. Like that's my impression of Filoni, and he did it well. He like marched up and down the lines like he was a Navy general, or an Army general. It was very funny.
Was he
But
wearing the cowboy hat?
he was wearing the cowboy hat.
Okay. Okay.
It was very funny because like I went. I'm good friends with Pablo Hidalgo. We're both Chilean, and that's how we became really good friends. But so I went to go say hi to Pablo, and then like Kathy Kennedy came up behind us and like started talking to him. So I didn't say nothing. And then Dave came up, they started talking, and then Dave went and like monitored the egg toss. But going back to
Whew.
it, like
That must have been a surreal experience to just have
it,
Kathy show up.
it was crazy. That's why I was just like, I just sat there and smiled. I don't have a part in this. Like I know that guy. He's the only guy I know. So but yeah, Dave Filoni is such a creative person,
Hmm.
and I feel a kinship to him in that when I need to produce something, I need someone else to
Hmm.
help me do it, or else it doesn't get done. Because I am too busy worrying about the story and
Hmm.
how it looks and
Yeah.
all of this, and I need a producer on like my podcast to think about where we need to edit things out or how we need to word our summaries or things
Hmm.
like that. And so like if this is true, I see it being true because there need to be two presidents of Lucasfilm if Dave Filoni is put in that position. Um because Kathleen Kennedy has been doing both for
Yeah.
so long. And I think that to let Dave Filoni's brain fly free the way it needs to and the way it deserves, he needs someone else to help him make those calls and spreadsheets and all of this. And this is not to say that Linwin is not equally creative or
Hmm.
anything like that, but like this is, Dave needs to spread his wings. He cannot make phone calls.
Agreed. The only thing that I kind of would add to that is just that I feel that the only thing I would be worried about if
Mm,
this news were true is kind of having just day, because
yeah.
everyone needs someone to push back against it, and I
Hmm.
think that one of the strengths, I mean, I don't know Dave personally, obviously, so I don't know the machinations in his mind and what he doesn't like in Star Wars versus what he does. I mean, I know what he likes. He likes Ahsoka, but I don't know if Dave had been co-president of Lucasfilm 5 years ago, if he would have greenlit Andor. You know what
Right.
I mean? I'm not sure if if he loves that flavor of Star Wars. So I
Hmm.
think that's the only thing I'm concerned about, that he might fall into just a comfort of what his flavor of Star Wars is because it's
Hmm.
George's flavor of Star Wars because that's what George told him. And I think that's
Hmm.
kind of a dangerous place to keep the mythos in, because if you stay there, you can't grow
Yeah.
beyond it. And I mean, not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe I'm sure that we would get awesome stories from Dave. I'm not denying that. I'm just worried that we wouldn't get other
Yeah.
stories that otherwise it might not happen if if they're not to his liking. Which I'm sure that those conversations have occurred, and
Hmm.
they're I'm
Yeah.
sure
I
that
mean, I
they
think
know much
it's,
more about it than I do.
yeah,
So.
I think that goes back to like it's good to have co-presidents in that respect because like the from what I know of Kathleen Kennedy's experience, she is very much the type of person to be like, let's get weird. Like
Hmm.
she's very much on that train and
Hmm.
very like I would love to hear Star Wars in different notes, I would
Hmm.
love to
Hmm.
see Star Wars in different colors. I like this the thing about Star Wars as a franchise and when I've never been the executive producer of a massive worldwide franchise, but the way I think about it is this no longer just belongs to George Lucas.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
belongs to the whole wide world. And what a wonderful thing that is because now you get to get weird with it like we did in 2025. You get to put it in different artists' hands and say, what do you think Star Wars is? What does Star Wars mean to you? What
Hmm.
stories are resonant in Star Wars that you can bring to life that no one else can? And
Yeah.
so yeah, like I said, like this year I'm so excited for the things that we're getting this
Hmm.
year. But I hope that whatever comes next, especially in 2027 when Star Wars turns 50, I hope that whatever
Hmm.
comes next is as colorful and as exciting and as weird
Hmm. Hmm.
as it has been because I think that was like the highlight of phase two was that like Star Wars got weird with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's one of those things that I think, and I agree with you that I think that right now they're in that safe zone as they kind of prepare to launch a phase
Mm,
three. That obviously is not going to be, no, they're not going to launch it like Marvel would. But I do think that they're playing a lot of things close to the chest until 2027 with Star Wars Celebration LA, which hopefully we get to attend and I see all our
yes.
friends there and see everyone that's listening.
Hmm.
But I feel like they're saving a lot of stuff for that to kind of like open the gates and be like, okay, here's us getting weird again.
Hmm.
And because this 2026, as excited as I am for everything, does feel very Bob Iger coded.
Yes.
Does
Yeah.
feel like we need to make returns for our investors. Like here's Mando and Grogu, which we
Hmm.
love Mando and Grogu. It's not that we don't love him, but to me it's just a oddly safe choice to restart the Star Wars cinematic experience to just go back
Yeah.
into the Mandalorian, which I think is just odd. It definitely feels very marketing, very well. Your mom loves Grogu, so go
Right.
see
Yeah.
him. We're even gonna slap his name on the title. Uh, I'm sure Favreau knows what he's doing. It's gonna be a lot of fun, but it's gonna be like the challenging Star Wars movie, like The Last Jedi was, or Rogue One, or something that's gonna do something to reinvent Star Wars. I hope so, but I'm
Mm,
not too confident about it. And even
yeah.
the narrative, and I want to hear your opinions on this specifically. Even the narrative that we're getting from Starfighter seems very dude. bro, check out this guy that's here.
Dudes rock.
Yes, like wow, man, look at Sean Levy. Isn't he like the fact that we're getting more news about Starfighter with Sean Levy like right now as opposed to anything for Mandalorian is very bizarre to me because everything
Hmm.
just feels like look at all these cool guys working together. Like Sean
Hmm.
Levy, Sean Levy's a cool guy, right? He did
Hmm.
Stranger Things, and Stranger Things is cool, remember? And Ryan Gosling, he's a man's man. You know he's cool, right? He's gonna be in this, and you remember him from Drive. He's gonna be cool. Oh, do you know that Tom Cruise guy?
Ugh.
He filmed a lightsaber. You like lightsabers? Tom Cruise is an action guy. Oh, Steven Spielberg. It all feels like very like they're
Yeah.
trying too hard to be like, look at all these cool guys here.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like, oh, where was that energy for the Acolyte? Where was that
Yeah.
energy for some of the other, Star Wars properties that had diverse characters and casts and creators that just didn't get it? And I feel like right now we're kind of being a little too precious with our fragile male audience that
Hmm.
we need to address the male loneliness epidemic apparently by just giving them a male fantasy with Mando and Grogu and Starfighter. But I don't know, maybe
I
maybe
mean,
a little too salty. So what do you think about it?
to your point, I feel I don't know this feeling I've gotten with Starfighter because it is supposed to take place after the rise of Skywalker.
Hmm.
It just feels so apologetic
Hmm.
for the sequels, and it's not apologetic in a way that's like, "Sorry, we messed up the story and it sucked." Like
Yeah,
it's apologetic in that, like, "Sorry, there was a girl in it."
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and there was like romance or whatever, and sorry there were diverse people in it. Here's a
yeah.
story about a white guy and his white son or nephew or whatever,
Hmm.
and oh, and lightsabers like Tom Cruise, blah blah blah. Like it feels apologetic in a way that is just like boring. Like it
Hmm.
just it doesn't. I don't know. Like my hopes for that story, especially with that lightsaber fight,
Hmm.
is that, like, this is the rumors I've heard is that, like, this is supposed to lead into or have something to do with New Jedi Order.
I
So I'm
hope
hoping
so. I
that,
hope so.
yeah, I hope it gets. I hope the weird thing is that Rey shows up and she's amazing, and
Yeah, yeah.
like, I don't know, somebody joins her Jedi Order or something,
Like
because I just there's nothing about this movie so far, which, by the way, took what, like a year to film. It was such a quick, like, turnaround. So that makes me kind of weirded out that, like, why I've never seen a Star Wars movie turn out that fast, you know?
Last Jedi was pretty quick too. I feel like they like Ryan Johnson just got that done.
Yeah.
So that almost gives me hope because I'm like, oh, like you knew exactly what
Yeah.
you were doing.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure. It's weird because I don't feel as excited about that as I feel like the excitement I feel for 2027. One, because of course it's gonna be the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. It's coming back to theaters.
Yeah,
My nieces are going to be 12 and 13,
perfect
and
age.
the perfect age to see Star Wars in theaters with them. It's the original cut, like
Hmm.
remastered, so it looks good, but like the original, not altered cut, so that the boys aren't angry
So
or
the boys can't get
whatever.
angry. Yeah, they'll
Oh,
have their Han Solo shooting first. No McClunky.
no
And
McClunky.
but I can guarantee you that once they see the Death Star battle and they see
Hmm.
like the old kind of like a little out of date effects, they'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe the special editions weren't that bad. Yeah. So I agree. I agree. But
Yeah.
part of me is excited. I mean, because I think Starfighter has a lot of possibility of like being awesome because it's like, yeah, if it actually focuses on starfighters as opposed to lightsaber battles, I think that's a net
Yeah.
positive for it. And I'm falling into the trap of doing a fan theories, but after they released that photo of Ryan Gosling like in the ocean or the sea or wherever the hell they were, I mean, it's like, oh, I mean, starfighters and they're in a water. Is this going to be
Oh,
Castellan from Star Wars Resistance?
resistance.
Are we going to get some tiebacks
Yeah.
to that? We're going to see the Colossus here. But then I reeled myself in. It's like, no, no, don't get too excited because you'll only get disappointed.
Yep.
But if we do stuff like that, where I'm just like, okay, we're connecting to sequel trilogy stuff, and it continues that, I'm just like, I'm on board, and at least as much as I was bashing it for being so like, look at all these boys, at least I feel like it's at least a creative
Yeah.
direction in terms of like doing something that's a little unexpected as opposed to Mando and Grogu, which as excited as I am for it, I'm gonna be there day one.
Hmm.
I'm gonna watch it and it's gonna be great, but still, it's still it's a marketing. It's Bob Iger
Yeah.
saying like, "Give me that Grogu money," and I feel like Starfighter is that project that's at least it's a little different, so that it has a little more potential. Although kind of feels like they stole Rogue Squadron from Patty Jenkins, but that's a story for a different day. But
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
there's a bunch more publishing that we can talk about that's coming down the pipeline, but I kind of wanted, I think, to end on a positive note, I hope, because
Mm.
I think one of the most anticipated projects for 2026, at least for me, is animation, and animation in Star Wars
Yes.
never misses or very rarely misses because I mean I know there's resistance fans out there, but it wasn't the best. Bad Batch much better, Rebels much
Mhm.
better, Clone Wars much better, and it seems that we're gonna follow the trend of continuing in great Star Wars animation with Maul Shadow Lord, which
Mhm.
kind of another project, which is like, look at that guy, he's cool, we're bringing him back. But for Maul, we'll forgive everything. So I remember watching that trailer at Star Wars Celebration Japan and everyone losing their mind. So that I think is one of the most highly anticipated projects for Star Wars in 2026.
Mhm.
But how do you feel? I know that you're also a big animation fan, a Star Wars animation fan, obviously with your favorite character, slash Ventress. So how did this announcement for Maul happen? Because I know there was a lot of talk of Asajj having a backdoor pilot in Bad Batch, so maybe have her own series. But now they
Mhm.
announced Maul, so how does that all tie together for you?
Yeah, well, I have like a million crazy fan theories about the Maul Shadow Lord series. One, I'm really excited for it. Sam Witwer never misses. Every single performance of his as Maul, and really just in general, has
Hmm.
always been incredible. I love the idea of Maul having a little apprentice.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know what this is going to be or how this is going to turn out. But it's really interesting because we have seen how Maul reacts as a mentor and a
Hmm.
teacher. For better or for worse, he did mentor Ezra for a
Hmm.
moment. He was a mentor, or it is implied at some point that he was a mentor to Kira. And I think this is a great vehicle to bring Kira back, because at some point or another, something
Hmm.
happens and she becomes the leader of Crimson Dawn. And I have a lot of theories about how Kira became the leader of Crimson Dawn and Maul ended up alone on that planet and they all connect to each other.
Hmm.
So I'm very excited to see that. I hope we do see her character come back. I think this is a great vehicle for reintroducing characters that are
Yeah.
in some way related to Maul. So Kira, Ventress, of
Hmm.
course, has a great opportunity to come back here because I think that Maul's story is so deeply tied to Dathomir. That is
Hmm.
his home planet, and having more players in the story that are from his planet and his
Yeah. Yeah.
culture, and with him and Ventress both in their own ways sort of being a
Yeah.
victimized by Talzin's greed and her want and her competitiveness with Palpatine. Both of them were in some way like abused, mutilated,
Hmm.
used as pawns against Palpatine. And I think there's a lot of exploration to do with how Maul feels about his home world, his home family, and all of that. And then these other introductions of this new character and what he wants to do with an apprentice, how he sees an apprentice, and whether or not it's going to be the cycle repeating,
Hmm.
of, oh well, there only need to be two, and it's going to be me and you. Or if he's going to take a completely different direction, because not to, again, I feel so bad like criticizing things, but one of my biggest gripes with the Ahsoka series was that Ahsoka went through all of that stuff
Hmm.
with the Jedi and learned all of those lessons and saw that the Jedi were wrong at that time in the timeline, and the way they were thinking was wrong, and then she went and did the same thing with Sabine,
Yeah, yeah,
essentially.
yeah, yeah.
That was incredibly disappointing to me. So I hope that we see something very different with Maul Shadow Lord, because Maul is one of those characters who does break the mold, who,
Mhm.
like, I wouldn't say he learns lessons, but he
Well,
gets,
he learns lessons, might not be the right ones, but
might not
he
be the right
learns.
ones. He may not make the right choices, but that's what makes him interesting. He's very unpredictable in that respect, you know? Like, he's I'm hoping that what we see him do and the choices we see him make are very unexpected and
Mhm.
very interesting. The only other Ventress theory I have tied to this show
Mm.
is that in Dark Disciple, she had a specific lightsaber, right? And that lightsaber has
Oh
been
yeah, yeah. Used
the one
in
with the
Darth Maul's
holes.
hilt. Yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes part of Darth Maul's hilt, and they have not made a secret of that, because at the Disney parks they released her hilt, and then they released his double-sided hilt with the same hilt. And
Hmm, hmm,
so,
hmm.
my theory is that, like, Ventress got buried in the Magic Lake, whatever. She left that lightsaber, ended up somewhere in a Dathomir trash can, and Maul came back at some point and was like, "Oh, cool lightsaber."
I like it.
Took
I
it
like
and
it.
made his new lightsaber, that we then see later on, with him using. So yeah, I think there are so many cool things and weird and interesting things that could happen in the Maul Shadow Lord series that I'm very excited about. And not to take us back a little bit, but the one thing I am excited about with Mando and Grogu
Hmm.
is the integration into the Disney parks.
Yeah.
If you, I mean, you know me, I've already talked about the parks like 3 times on just this show alone, this episode alone. But I am excited to see not just the change in the Smuggler's Run
Hmm,
vehicle, like, that ride, but I would also like to see what happens to the characters in the parks, right? Because
hmm.
during Season of the Force, we got Luke Skywalker in the parks walking around for a while, and every once in a while, like, without any announcement or fanfare, he just shows up again. like
Hmm,
like
hmm,
that
hmm.
actor like comes back and they're like, "Oh, you're here. Well, here, be Luke." So I'm interested in seeing, what if we get Bo-Katan in the
Hmm.
parks? What kind of activations will there be? Because I think there is a huge opportunity to do things like they do with Rey and the lightsaber, like the group lightsaber light up thing,
Hmm,
where
hmm,
there's like a
hmm.
little act or play ahead of time where, like, a rebel comes and, like, has to face off against the First Order, and then Rey comes in and saves the day. Like, I think there's an opportunity for, like, random bits of magic,
Hmm,
as they call it at Disney, like, magic moments with those characters where, like, you get involved like you used to when Vi was in the parks and she
hmm,
took
hmm.
you on missions. I think it would be cool to have Mando and Ahsoka and Bo-Katan and Sabine just in the parks interacting, having little moments throughout the day that are, like, narratively satisfying and
Yeah.
exciting, and bring you into what's happening in Mando and Grogu, because I think that's what's going to make it unique and
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. I
So,
agree. I think that Galaxy's Edge has a problem. I mean, as much I've only been once, and I
mm,
loved it, right? But in my mind, looking at it, without the benefit of having repeat uh, goings ons there or
yeah.
whatever, is that it feels very static. It's just like
Yes.
everything, because everything you kind of have like the four different things you can do, like Ogas, Savis, Rise of the Resistance, Smuggler's Run. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff, but it's all very like this is the thing, and the thing is
Hmm.
always that. And
Hmm.
I think, like, for example, Star Tours is not that. Star Tours, you never know what you're
Yeah.
gonna get, and there's so much variety to it that I think that I mean, I don't know how, but it should be injected into Galaxy's Edge a little bit so that the experience is always unique. And while the characters, I think, would be a cool way to do it. Like, there's only so much interaction that you can have with a cast member, that I think that, as much as I find it weird that they're just incorporating Mando into the Millennium Falcon, I think it's a good. I mean, I think it's a good idea. Just keep it fresh, and maybe it's that one with the previous story that comes on, and maybe they keep adding stories to Smuggler's Run, so it's like always a different adventure that you're going there, so that at least it has some a possibility of always being fresh instead of
Yeah.
being like, okay, this is the same thing, so I'm not gonna do it again because I already did it, and let's just go to Tomorrowland or some stuff. But
Mhm.
that's just one of the opinion of one non-park goer. But we take
No,
it at face value.
I completely agree with you. Like, I think that a lot of the things, not, I feel like I fully derailed us, and I'm so sorry, but like,
I don't
one
know,
of the
totally fine.
things we were promised when Galaxy's Edge opened was aliens, was
Mhm.
interactive moments where, like we feel very immersed in the land rather than like, oh, well, I'm going to go hang out in Galaxy's Edge today,
Yeah,
which has
I'm
kind
gonna
of
get another run to
been,
wrap. Yeah,
yeah, I'm gonna get around to a wrap. I'm gonna people watch, blah, fight with Kylo Ren a little bit. But I think that what it's missing are those moments that make you feel like you're really part of the story, and
yeah,
they kind of had that when it opened. And the Star Cruiser was a very expensive attempt at that happening,
yeah,
but I think what it proved was that like people are game for this, and if you lock them in the right way, if you bring them these experiences and do something interesting with it, like it'll give them a different experience every single time. And
yeah.
like, not to be all capitalism, but that's how you get people coming back
True,
to the
true,
park.
true.
Like you give them different experiences so that they're like, oh my god, my friend got to do that with Sabine, I didn't get to do that with Sabine.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go to Galaxy's Edge now while she's there and do that with Sabine. Like,
agree. Yeah.
you know
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think, and I mentioned this before, but one of the, I don't know if it's one of my best ideas, but I'm pretty proud of this idea. Is that they should just open another Galaxy's Edge, either like in Paris or Tokyo or in one of the other parks, and then you just retheme two of them to be one as
yes.
prequel trilogy, one as sequel trilogy, and then the other is the original trilogy. And that way, like each park is, you're still at
Yes.
Batu, but then you have like different experiences based on the time frame that you're in. I mean, and they have done that in publishing. You have Thrawn
Hmm.
stories at Batu during the prequel trilogy. I know that we've gone to Batu in the sequel trilogy in some of the tie-in books,
Hmm.
obviously in the original trilogy. So it's just like something to just keep it fresh and have each experience unique. So
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
my that's my that's my thing.
Batu's been part of the story since the High Republic. It was in Young
Yeah,
Jedi Adventures.
yeah.
They like specifically went there before the Falcon was parked there, all that. So like there's so much that you can do with it. And I think it would be really cool to have like a prequel Batu where
Hmm.
like the Naboo cruiser is parked where the
Hmm.
Falcon is,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
go on like a mission on that cruiser, and like the like cockpit is rethemed in
Hmm.
this very sleek way.
Yeah,
And like
that
the
would
original
be
trilogy one,
incredible.
yeah, like the original trilogy version could have like, I don't know, space duct tape or something, or like the chairs could be a little grimy because Han doesn't know how to take care of his ship. Like
Yeah.
I think you're so right that there's like such an opportunity there to like, it's going to cost a lot of money, but it'll be
Disney
worth it.
Disney got it. Disney got it.
Disney's got the money.
You
Yeah,
got it. Come
exactly.
on. It's
It'll be
like
worth it because then
Disney
people will want to
Imagineering, just
go.
call us, and we'll give you
Yeah,
ideas.
we're here. You can just pull us into your board meetings.
Yeah, but
Our fees are free. Like, just
but
let us go to the parks.
yeah, like I mean, I'd like to go again. Maybe 2026 is the year that I go to a park. Maybe 2027 when we go to Star Wars Celebration LA,
Yeah,
because
that's completely
Anaheim's, it's a little far, but it's doable. But yeah, it's gonna be an exciting 2026, despite some of the maybe cynicism about some of the products. It's still exciting, and it's always a wonderful time to be a Star Wars fan because there's new Star Wars to
yes.
look forward to. So thank you so much, Katrina, for
Yeah.
kicking off 2026 here with Triad of the Force, as we took a fond look back and a hopeful look forward into 2026. But before we finally wrap things up, why don't you tell everybody what you have going on and where people can find you?
Yeah. So just before I do that, I will promote, because I am reading the advanced reader copy right now. Star Wars Outlaws,
Oh yeah,
Low
it's
Red
very good,
Moon.
very good. Yeah,
Oh my god, I can't say anything about it because we are embargoed until it comes out. But that does come out, I think, like February
February.
2nd or 3rd.
Oh, for some reason I was gonna say no. The embargo lives January 20th. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think the next week it comes
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
first week of February, Star Wars Outlaws Low Red Moon by Mike Chen comes out. It is, don't miss it. Like, it just, I can't say anything else about it. I don't feel like I don't want to get us in trouble. Anyway,
It
don't
was
miss it. Put it on
Yeah,
the
it
calendar.
was a very surprising story
Yeah.
considering that it's a prequel for a video game that I've never played. I
Yeah.
think that's as much as I can say. I've seen some people already like on the social, especially on Blue Sky. That's where I live these
Mhm.
days. Already kind of talking about it. I mean, it's like, oh, that's not. I mean,
We're not supposed
like
to do that.
save it, save it.
I will give
They're
you
not
the date and tell you
they're
to
not
read it.
giving spoilers to be fair. But I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a lot of emotion on it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
But
that's a good one to look
definitely.
forward to.
Mark your calendars. So yeah, gosh, what am I up to right now? You can catch me over on the Geeky Waffle, both the podcast and the YouTube channel. I show up whenever Candace asks me to show up. We just finished up a big series on a deep dive analysis on Wicked, which a lot of people either liked or super hated, and that
Oh,
was
part
cool with
two.
me.
Yeah.
Hey, I love it when I make people feel emotions. That's like what I live for. I I'm doing a lot of things. So you can find me on the internet anywhere at Katrina. Add the little blue sky tag on it if you want to. I am everywhere except for X. And you should be too. And yeah, gosh. I don't know. I'm doing a lot of things and I don't know what they
Great.
are. I'm writing some books. That's
That's
something
exciting,
that,
exciting,
yeah.
exciting stuff.
So I'm working on that. I later this year I will have contributed to a tabletop RPG dual set of Galactic and Going Rogue 2E, which if you are a
Mm,
Star Wars fan, my goodness, these games are for you. Both incredible. Look out for those. I'll be writing the supplemental story for The Space Beyond, which is the game's
mm.
version of the Force, in a book called Look Up to the Stars. So keep an eye out for that. I
Sounds
remembered
exciting.
what I'm
Sounds
doing.
exciting. I mean, sounds like you're not bored and you're not, you know, and you're not just sitting on a couch. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Lots
yeah,
of stuff. So we're excited.
yeah,
We're excited for that. And
yeah.
as always, make sure to follow Katrina, great friend of the channel, a great creator doing amazing things. So we'll just, if you didn't catch those ads or links, we'll leave them down in the description below so you can find her. So please hurry and follow her. She has amazing Ventress takes on the internet as we count down to her inevitable show. So please make sure to do that over on Threads and Blue Sky, never on Twitter. So again, thank you, Katrina. But with that, we hope that you have enjoyed this first episode of the year to kick off 2026 with joy, optimism, still constructive criticism, sorts of things. We can't all just be positive all the time. We have to be critical in what we look at, but hopefully it's with a lens of joy and in good faith. So if you're listening to us, thank you so much for starting your 2026 with us. We hope you enjoyed your holidays. We hope that your new year is off to a great start. I know it's going to be difficult in many ways, but we're going to work through it together. So please join this ride and we'll just watch each other's back from there. If you haven't yet, please make sure to share, like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. No, not Twitter. Don't, sorry. That's just the old habits there. Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, all those places here on YouTube. If you haven't yet, please make sure to do that. Leave us a review on Spotify. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the channel keep growing because we would be nothing without everyone that's watching and listening. But without further ado, thank you so much for listening to Triad of the Force, and may the Force be with you.